Chào mừng quý vị quay trở lại với chương trình Tôi và Việt Nam trên kênh truyền hình FPNC ngày hôm nay với cuộc trò chuyện với anh Sean Ngô, giám đốc điều hành của Việt Nam Franchises, tổ chức cung cấp cái dịch vụ tư vấn đối với việc nhượng quyền thương mại của các thương hiệu quốc tế. So you are the one who connect, let's say, local partners with potential big brands who want to come to the market. So what are some of the cultural differences or cultural issues that the franchisor and franchisee might run into?
Well, certainly from a business perspective, franchisors, we always have this discussion with potential prospects in Vietnam and the Philippines and in Thailand and Singapore, and that is, we have to change this perception about franchisors selling you franchises, because the real good franchise systems, the real reputable ones, the ones that you want, are not selling you franchise systems. They are granting you the franchise systems, and that means by going through a very meticulous process of identifying who the candidates are and understanding who you are and why you want these franchise systems is very important to them, because once they understand your real motivations for wanting the franchise, then of course then you can build that trust and relationship and exchange a lot of critical information between the franchise system and how you do things specifically for your markets to make that a success. It becomes truly a partnership. It's more than just a transaction.
Not just buying and selling, right?
Not just buying and selling, and really at the end of the day, like we talked about, Entrepreneur Magazine, in 2011 did a survey of the top CEOs of franchise systems in America, and they asked them what were the top 3 things that they look for. The first thing was basically good people skills. You need to have good people skills. So if franchisor and franchisee are not communicating effectively, there's going to be a problem. And then secondly is, franchising is very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
But you also need to be coachable. You are not going to show McDonald's how to make a burger. Because they've been making burgers for a long, long time. So I think you have to be coachable, and of course you have to have sufficient capital. And when we say sufficient capital, franchisers are aware of your other businesses, because you would have shared that information with them. That would have been required information. So what they want to know is, do you have sufficient capital to develop this particular franchise versus your other franchises or your other businesses, and how are you going to dedicate this capital specifically for this particular franchise?
But how can they prove it if they don't have any track records in that kind of field, in that related business?
Well, I think this is where we have the track record, the industry experience of the franchisees. Again, do you have great people? One of the key things that you will need to show to the franchisor is, what is my organizational chart? What does it look like? Who manages this business? Who will manage this particular franchise of mine for your business? So they want to know exactly who these people are. And a lot of times, for big brands, they'll probably even require that you send them the CV of these people to ensure that there is agreement that, yes, this is the best person to manage this business for us.
So what is the number one factors that make the local franchisee fail to get a deal for a franchisor, even though they met all the criteria?
I think it's a lot about, it's a lot about the passion, I think, in terms of wanting the franchise and the reasons why you want the franchise.
Do you have any example?
Well, I think we always use McDonald's as an example, and I think specifically for Vietnam, I think it came down to basically 3 parties, and of course Henry was one of those parties. And I think one of the other candidates was asked by a senior McDonald's VP at the time to say, well, are you willing to go to the U.S., to go to Hamburger University, to do some training with us? You don't have to do the entire full training with us. And I think the CEO at the time may have mentioned that he was busy and that he would send his people, his quality people, to go attend that training. And I think it may have sent the wrong message. It may have sent the message that, yeah, this is just another business for me, instead of this is a critical business for me. Yes, I am happy to go to Hamburger University. Yes, I'm happy to go visit and learn a little bit more about your company. And I think that's really about passion and commitment to the brand, because a brand like McDonald's wants you to really appreciate them. And of course, they appreciate the franchisee in Vietnam, because they know that without the franchisee in Vietnam, they cannot be successful. But it has to be mutual, and there has to be equivalent amounts of respect shown between both parties, and I think that's very important.
So what are you working on right now? Are there many brands that's interesting to come? Right?
Well, as I mentioned to you kind of earlier today, I cannot mention any specific parties, potential franchisees, but we are working with Denny's across multiple markets, including Vietnam. Denny's from America.
Restaurant, yeah.
It's a 24-hour dining concept, 99% brand awareness in America. Entrepreneurial Magazine calls it a top 10 franchise, even higher than McDonald's and Pizza Hut.
Interesting, Denny's.
So we have that. We have lots of interest in specifically Philippines and Thailand, and some interest in Vietnam. We have Manhattan Fish Market, a regional brand. We have enormous interest in markets like Vietnam. So right now we're looking at multiple parties, and in fact we recently sent some parties to Singapore to talk with the particular franchisor about opportunities to acquire the franchise. We have the Vitamin Shop, a retail play, not just F&B. The Vitamin Shop has 600 units in the U.S., a publicly listed company on the New York Stock Exchange. We have had enormous interest in them in the last couple of years. Now, the Vitamin Shop is also very, very picky in terms of who they grant their master franchises to. So that is probably one of the key reasons why we have yet to find a quality franchisee who will meet the expectations of the Vitamin Shop.
So the typical model for the big brand is they looking for a master franchisee first, right?
Yes. So in America and in other developed markets, it's much simpler. They can go to individual franchisees. But for a McDonald's to deal with 100 different franchisees in a market like Vietnam is impossible. So they always look for big companies with big infrastructure, with great people, great experience to develop the entire market for them, whether that's Vietnam, the Philippines, Thailand, or Singapore.
But again, go back to my question earlier, is how can they manage the risk of containing the consistent image, building consistent image when you manage a lot of franchisees?
I think, you know, the first step in terms of keeping that brand value is to ensure that you have the right partners who share that philosophy. This is the reason why I'm paying you the royalties. This is the reason why I'm paying you the franchise fees to acquire these brands, because I love the values that you bring. I love the image that you bring. And it is my promise to keep and maintain that image, or maybe even improve it. You know, a lot of times franchisors actually learn from their franchisees in terms of potentially new products or new ways of doing things or new sourcing capabilities. So I think it's a two-way relationship that has to be very, very active. Franchisor needs to continue to improve. Franchisee needs to continue to improve, and together they will improve the system.
So you must be careful right from the beginning for the selection.
Yes,
partner selection.
It has to start from the beginning. Otherwise, if you get the wrong partners, you will never change the ways that they do business.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thưa quý vị, vừa rồi là những chia sẻ của anh Sean Ngô, giám đốc điều hành của Vietnam Franchises, một tổ chức cung cấp các dịch vụ tư vấn về nhượng quyền đối với các thương hiệu quốc tế bước chân vào Việt Nam. Đây thì chương trình Tôi Việt Nam kỳ này cũng sẽ được khép lại. Quý vị có thể xem lại chương trình này trên trang web toivietnamfbnc.com hoặc là fbnc.vn. Một lần nữa thân ái chào tạm biệt và hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong những chương trình kỳ sau.